Hello, 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 and welcome back to I May Be Young, but I'm your host, Adisyn Flanner, and on this podcast, a teen girl talks about important global issues and shares her opinions to the world, even though no one may listen to them, which sounds sad, but it really isn't. I really enjoy doing this podcast, and whether or not thousands of people listen to it, it's something that I would like to continue to do for a very, very long time. Anyway, today the topic of the episode is I'm going to try to put a little bit of text there, but the topic of the episode is school shootings. I've tried to refrain from talking about this topic just because it's a little sensitive and it's a little close to home just because I go to school. Like there's a chance every day that when I go to school, one of those kids on the news could be me. And that's pessimistic thinking, but it's the truth in this country that we call America. And so I just thought I would talk about it from the perspective of someone who it could happen to and thinks it could happen to on a daily basis. But before we get into all that deep stuff, I'll give you a little bit of recap of what I've been doing. I've been very busy this past couple weeks. I've been competing for school organizations. I went on a little vacation for spring break. Today is currently Friday, March 31st. Next week is Easter, which is very exciting. I'm very excited to spend the time with my family over the holiday and glad that next week is only a 4-day week. So excited for that. I'm having a lot of tests and reviews because state standardized testing is coming up. So that's pretty interesting. Haven't really been up to much except for this. Okay, so now let's get into it. So I did a little bit of research before I started to do this. I try to be very candid when I record these, but from what I researched, the first school shooting in the US was in 1853. That should tell you right away that there's a problem because 1853, it was the 1800s. People were just finally learning how to assemble a, a gun in quicker because of the Industrial Revolution. That's right, I paid attention in history. So the fact that there was a school shooting that early shows deep roots of problems with gun violence in America. Maybe I should stop saying that word. That can get censored on some platforms. You'll know what I mean. But so essentially the first school shooting, I believe there was a teacher that was killed, and it was just a normal day like any day, just like it is every day, and nobody was expecting a thing. And what I think of is funny about this is that problems go back centuries and still nothing has been done about it, and they keep happening. The first time I heard about school shootings, I wasn't that young actually. I didn't really learn about it until I think I was maybe I didn't really know what it was until I was 12, which is very lucky for me because I wasn't really exposed to that, but I didn't really know what school shootings were until I was 12. Before that, I really didn't know that they happened. I didn't know that somebody would walk into a school to commit acts of violence. I just thought when I went to school, I was completely safe because we had lockdown drills, but I thought that was if a criminal who was robbing a bank near the area decided to come and hide in the school came. Not their only intention was to come in and harm kids and faculty. So I'm very grateful for the fact that I was kind of shielded from that at such a young age, because I feel like it impacts little kids a lot. School is supposed to be, you go there 7 hours a day, and I think that you may not be safe there is a bit unsettling. Um, got a little friend here for those of you watching on YouTube, but it's a bit unsettling at such a young age to think about somebody coming in and harming you. Uvalde was there have definitely been more school shootings in Texas. Let's get that straight. I think Texas has the largest number of school shootings in the United 50 States of America. But that was the first time that I had heard about one in my lifetime. And so it was really like impact for me, especially because it was an elementary school. For those of you who might not know, the Uvalde shooting, I believe it was, I can't remember his name, but they identified the shooter, and I think he was maybe 19, 20. I can't remember how many kids died. I think it was a good number. And there was a lot of drama behind how the police could have handled the situation better, things that could have been done to save more kids and more adults. My volleyball team, we did a tribute to Uvalde by tying maroon ribbons around our laces and our shoes. And it was impactful for me. Just recently also there was a shooting at Arlington Lamar High School in Arlington, Texas. That one was a little different just because it wasn't in the school. I believe Arlington Lamar has metal detectors. So getting inside the school, I was kind of like, how did they get in there? But essentially, the person who did it was targeting one specific person, and they ended up shooting two people. I think the person that they were targeting did end up dying, but I think the other one survived and just had an injury. And then most recently, I think 4 or 5 days ago, there was a shooting at a Catholic school in Tennessee in which a transgender woman went into the Catholic school, killed 3 kids and 3 members of the faculty. So that was, yeah, essentially, from what I know about the situation, the woman who did so was targeting the pastor's daughter specifically, and she was one of the children who was killed. They were all aged 9, and that's how I guess that's kinda how you could tell that they were targeting someone specifically because they went to, like, the same hallway with the same aged kids because they were looking for her. And it's very unfortunate. She did end up when the police got to the school, she was still shooting, so they ended up shooting her and she ended up dying. So that is what happened with that. It's just I hear about these things and then there's always that like small inkling in me like, "Oh my gosh, this could happen to me one day." Everybody thinks it's not going to happen to me and then it does and I can't even imagine cuz you're like, "Oh no, nobody I know would do that." But like and then on from the shooter's perspective, it could be somebody who was bullied in school. It could be somebody who just has some sort of governmental agenda. It could be someone who just decided that this is what they wanted to do, but you never know. Like maybe there's something that drove them to this. Now, no amount of bullying should make you want to kill people, but no amount of bullying should make you want to kill people, but sometimes there's just a limit of the things you can say to people and there's no limit to what people will go to get something done. And there's like I see if I scroll, I see a lot of things like, oh, if you're ever in a school shooting, there's these things. I can't remember what they're called, but they're these like sort of like mylar packs in the shape of a backpack. And it's a bulletproof pad and you stick it in your backpack. And so that kids, if they were to ever be in that situation, they could turn their backpacks around and put it over their stomach and protect their core so they wouldn't bleed out if they did get shot. And there's these pill thingies that you can like they're filled with like fake blood and you can bite down on them and then like spit out the little casing and make it look like there's blood and stuff so you could play dead. And it's just like there's some inventions that I wish never had to be made, but this is the world we live in. Something that I found out that I thought was interesting was that the UK had one school shooting in the 70s, 80s, or 90s. It was before 2000. I remember that. I'm trying to think of what I read. And they had one school shooting and they imposed stricter pew pew laws and they haven't had one since. Like, there's a reason that people from the UK in comment sections are commenting, like, oh, imagine going to school and getting like shot up. And then because it happened to them and they did something about it. And it's not the fact that it happened, it's the fact that it's happened so many times and it keeps happening and nothing is being done about it. I mean, some schools get metal detectors. Like we're putting in these protective measures, but not preventative measures. We're not trying to prevent it. We're just trying to prepare ourselves for if and when it happens. And I think that's a real problem. I've seen multiple posts talking about there's been 86 school shootings alone this year, and there's only been 83 days in 2023. This is not how I wanted to start the year. This is not how I plan to start the year. Is scrolling on Instagram and seeing that more little kids died through gun violence for unnecessary reasons. And like it makes me a little sad. Like people in who have the power in the government can't like feel enough to see that whether or not like Second Amendment rights and all that, see that maybe there's a better solution down the road that serves everybody's needs, but for now, something needs to change and quickly, so more parents don't have to get that call that their children's school is being shot up. No more in case anything happens, I love you text. I think that I mean, I get it. There's people on opposite ends of the spectrum, people who have firearms and want to keep them and don't want to be restricted in how they use them and feel that they need it for protection. And I understand that. But I just think temporarily, maybe something drastic needs to be done. And then later down the line, we can take time and discuss what we're going to do. But we don't have time. We've had plenty of time. And in that time, it happens again and again and again and again, and I could say again 82 more times, math. And so I think something needs to be done. I don't know what, but something. Going back to my if kids rule the world, if the one thing I would do if I ruled the world is do something about this, because it's honestly just sad. I wouldn't like I would there's a lot of things about America that I do like that I'm allowed to not like the president, that I'm allowed to protest and things, but then I'm allowed to protest and I can protest all I want, but then my protest never gets anything done. And then we pass other laws like the Willow Project in Alaska that is gonna, I think, produce like millions of tons of oil and like it's going to affect climate change essentially. We pass stuff like that, but then we can't pass anything on stricter firearm laws. It just doesn't sit right with me. However, I do think that for now there's a light at the end of the tunnel. I think eventually something's going to happen, something's going to change, and things will get better because people develop and everything develops and things change. And I think America is capable of that kind of change. In the meantime, active shooter drills. Me personally, my school hasn't really done any like active shooter drills. Like we do lockdown drills where you like shelter in place, but it's not specifically in case there was an active shooter. Like what happens in our lockdown drills is they release the announcement from the intercom system and they'll say lockdown and we turn off the lights and the teachers put little covers over the windows in their doors and we sit up against the wall where nobody could see in the window. In my biology class, there is a storage closet that you can go into, and so my biology teacher told us that we're allowed to go in there and then we can throw things, block the door, do whatever we can. There's also my school has a cell phone policy and it gets on my nerves. We have a cell phone policy that we have to put our cell phones in pockets during class. And the only thing that tells me about that is that if something were to happen at school, I don't know if I'm going to be able to grab my phone. Like I don't know if I'm going to be able to maybe send out any last messages to anybody, and that's a little sad, but I have my Apple Watch, so I can text on that. In my geography class, there we have a contraption on the door, and you can stick it under the doorknob, like these doorknobs or this same doorknob, and you stick it under the doorknob and you kick it, and like it makes sure that they can't just turn it, so they couldn't get in if they wanted to. But in the past, barricading the door, you had to basically everybody in the classroom had to help. Everybody in the classroom had to get up and help. You had to grab the desks and then flip them over on their side and then push them against the door until they reached the wall. So they couldn't open the door, so the desks were just pushing against the wall. And while it was effective, it took way too long and made way too much noise, and it wasn't really working. Some other things my school does is that we're not allowed to let anyone in the building. So, like when kids at my high school do late arrival and they're standing at the door, you'd be like, "Oh my gosh, oh I know her, I'm gonna go let her in." You can't do that because I mean, like obviously, if you're inside, you can push the door open and let them in, but they're watching on the security cameras, and then whatever teacher allowed you to do that, that teacher gets in trouble, and then you get in trouble for letting them in, and you can get suspended. I don't think anyone has gotten suspended for it, but you can get suspended for letting people in the building. So what we have to do is either we can't let them in and they have to go in through the front doors through the front office, which means that they'll either have to get a tardy or some kind of absence or a pass, which is kind of like, I guess, a little tick off on their record or whatever. Or you have to go ask an administrator and be like, "Hey, can I open the door for so and so?" And they have to give you approval to open the door, and then you open it. At the beginning of the year, it was kind of hard for kids, like to not just go and open the door. But now kids are kind of getting used to it, of asking or just telling the people, "No, you can't come in," and all that jazz. Going back to the governmental side of things, I've seen a lot of people referring to stricter firearm laws in regards to other things that have been passed this year, like environmental laws, um, reproductive rights laws, things like that. Like I'm pretty sure a lot of people have seen this. People saying, "So you can force us to have kids, but they can't live until recess," which I think I'm not going to discuss abortion laws per se, but I think it's a very valid point. If you're going to have kids, they deserve to live a long life away from violence and firearms. I always wonder what it was like in the past because people like my parents and my teachers and people who were born before 2000 always say it wasn't like this when I was growing up. I could go outside at night and not have to worry about somebody trying to snatch me. And I didn't have to always tell my parents exactly where I was going so they would know where I was. I went to school and I wasn't worried about anything. I always wondered what that was like. Like, I wonder what my life would kind of be like if it was as free as it was. Like, I could go outside and just be like, "Hey, I'm going to so and so's house." But now it's a bit stricter. Like, and this is just me. My social plans are planned out way in advance. I'm not a spontaneous person at all. That is just how I am. So if you say, "Hey, you want to go somewhere?" I'd be like, "Hold up, let me check my calendar." And I'm like, "No, but I can do next week, maybe Saturday, 2 p.m. Sure." Yeah, my social life is pretty much planned out. I don't do many spontaneous things. But even then, still, I have my I have a tracker on my phone. Makes me feel a little bit safer just so my mom knows where I am, even though it's her where I'm going anyway. And like I tell my mom where I'm going, I tell her who's gonna be there. I don't always necessarily tell her what time I'm gonna be back, depending on where I'm going, because sometimes things run longer, but she knows when I'm leaving. She knows approximately how long it should take. She knows what we're gonna be doing there. And I just wonder what it would be like if she didn't have to worry as much about like not that like I'm like shaming her for caring about what I do and where I go. I'm glad that I have a mom who like is in my life and wants to make sure that I'm safe and is invested in my safety and me. But also I wonder what it'd be like if she didn't have to worry so much. Like I wonder if back in the day I could have just told her, Mom, I'm going out, and she would have felt comfortable with me going out. Or maybe not. Or maybe this has always been an issue and will forever be an issue. I know this episode isn't really as comedic as it usually is. I didn't make that many, I guess you could say, jokes. I made jokes about my life myself, but I don't feel comfortable making jokes about this sensitive of a topic. I feel like it's insensitive to the things that have happened and continue to happen. So that's why this one isn't entertaining. It's more deep. So maybe go to one of the other episodes if you were looking for comedic entertainment. Yay! Do I have to put a trigger warning on this? I might have to put a trigger warning on this. We're gonna see. I think that's going to be all for today. I hope you enjoyed it. I mean, well, not like enjoyed it. I hope you learned something from this and that you learned something from this and learned about kids' lives who were lost, kids' lives who continue to be lost, a little bit about school safety in America. And I hope that someday this video is going to be completely invalid and there's going to be kids who are like, what? School shooting? What is that? Ugh, imagine? Yeah. Yeah, I hope that this video ages into irrelevance, essentially. Without further ado, rest in peace to all the children and faculty members who have died because of gun violence at school, at home, on the street, just anyone. I hope they're resting peacefully, and I hope that no more people have to die. And that's all I have to say about that. I will see you next week. I'm going to try to get more consistent on Instagram, which you should follow me on. The link is in my bio. You can just click it. Like, you just click it like that, and they can just be like, boop, follow. It's that easy. And then I get a little notification, and it brings a little smile to my face when you just click the follow button. That was a little aggressive. I'm sorry. Bye. I hope you have a good day.